We are the Church of the Larger Fellowship, the Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundaries. We believe in cultivating curiosity and transformation that is rooted in profound love.
For over 85 years, the ministries of the Church of the Larger Fellowship have circled the globe and crossed the walls of prisons. We are a spiritual lifeline for our over 2,000 members in prison, who are also connected to individual Unitarian Universalists through our letter writing ministry.
In our online community, we offer weekly worship, classes, and groups. Our monthly magazine, Quest, supports the spiritual lives of thousands around the globe. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed even from a distance.
We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Church of the Larger Fellowship.
We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of the Voices of Unitarian Universalism, known affectionately as The View.
The View is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective.
Since 2013, we have gathered every Thursday from September to June to welcome guests from around the world.
Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond.
We hope that today's show inspires you. We hope it builds your faith and gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life.
Welcome to The View. Oh my God. Hello, this is Aisha Hauser. I am one half of the lead ministry team of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, along with Reverend Dr. Michael Tino. And I come to you on the land of the Coast Salish people, also known as Seattle, Washington. It is gray here because it is Seattle, Washington, and that is what we do. Reverend D.C. Fortune and Reverend Dr. Michael Tino will not be joining us today. So you have me and Reverend Dante Hilliard. Dante, how are you? Where are you?
Good morning, Aisha. Reverend Dante Hilliard here, coming to you from the land of the Council of the Three Fires, which is the historic lands of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi people, also known as Chicago, Illinois, USA. And it's gray here. You know, we went from summer to fall to winter. Fall really didn't have an opportunity.
Is that usual, or is that climate change?
Well, the thing is, growing up in the Midwest, it was very common that Halloween would be this really defining moment. It would usually be cold and wet and rainy. And then it's just kind of down from there. So, yeah, and that's how Halloween was pretty much. We've been below zero. We've been under 32 degrees several times already.
Oh, that's not cute.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's winter. Like, once you're under 32 degrees, you're in winter.
And it doesn't thaw until what, April?
It depends. We've had snow in April. We've had snow in June.
Oh, wow.
And now with climate change, who knows, child? Who knows?
Listen, it is.
And I live off the lake, so it's going to be colder and windier.
That's right. Well, and still warmer than the inland, no? You said you're by the lake?
Yeah, I mean, early, like in the fall, it's cooler because the lake is there. But once it gets cold, once that lake cools off, we're colder.
Gotcha. Oh, that sucks.
And as the water passes over the lake, it gets cool. Like, so,
right. Gotcha.
Well, it's like living on the ocean, but not.
but not right. It's almost the worst of all worlds because in the ocean it is warmer. Um, so today it's you and I, and we are going to talk about liturgy, Unitarian Universalism, how we do church, and how much we love how we do church. So one of the things that we will begin starting in January. Now we've done themes every year since, I don't know, the 1800s. We haven't been around the 1800s. I'm exaggerating. However, what we thank you, Dante. It was your idea, and we were like, "Yay, this is a great idea. We're gonna follow a liturgy, so we're gonna repeat the themes each year, which is super exciting." And so, I just want to tell Nicole, who said good morning, what I miss. You didn't. You just missed that we were talking about the weather, lake, climate change, cold. So now we're digging into the deep stuff about liturgy. So talk a little bit, Dante, about the importance of liturgy and the ways that they enforce kind of how we engage with religion, and you use them to be specific.
Sure. So, for us seminarians, we'll throw these terms around all the time: liturgy, da da da. So, often people use the words liturgy and worship interchangeably, but liturgy, in Latin, it literally means the work of the people. It is the work that we do to build our communal ritual. And for me as a storyteller, I consider all rituals stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that worship is a communal ritual.
That's
so
right.
It means it's a communal story. It is a form of communal storytelling. And so what liturgy does is it uses the principles of learning. Long before we had psychology, humans were practicing a form of learning through repetitive storytelling we call liturgy. And it is you tell the story over and over spans of time to build understanding, to build wisdom, to build knowledge. So like my joke is, as a progressive religious person who was raised Christian, I have tried to unchristian myself in many, many ways. And yes, my theology is way more progressive than perhaps how I was raised. But you can't get that liturgy out of you because I've been in it. Christians tell the story of the death, birth, and the resurrection of Christ every year, over and over. There are holidays that are part of that liturgy. There are particular worship services, your religious education materials, your sermons, your music. It's coordinated. Even in places where they don't practice a formal liturgy,
That's right.
you still get liturgy elements because of the holy days. The holy days in any religious tradition are also part of the liturgy, a part of the story. If you are a practicing Jewish person, you're going to work through the Tanakh over the course of a year, right? And those stories begin to take a life in you, and you repeat the stories because just because you've heard a story once doesn't mean you maximize the wisdom that's available in the story. So you hear a story again that you've heard a lot of times, but now you got a new insight. You get a new learning.
You get a new learning, and you get a new learning within the context of where you are in your life, which changes, right? And so you connect to it differently. You get a different nugget from a different place or a different character, right?
Yeah.
Depending on how old you are. I mean, I certainly hear things now in my 50s differently than when I was in my teens, 20s, and 30s. Because the Muslim religion, which is also an Abrahamic faith, same thing. We have liturgy, we have stories, we have, and I remember them. I mean, I remember certain stories, certain passages from the Quran that I was told to memorize. But I think that is one of the things that's super important. And because as a religious educator, especially in the beginning, many years ago when I started, there was this, I think part of how trying to figure out like how best to do this. And I'd like to think I'm much better now than I was in the beginning, or understanding. It isn't about newness. Like we have to tell a different story. First of all, it's a lot of pressure. But what would it look like to, now I'm much more like, yes, let's tell that story again. Let's have that reading again. It is, especially when it's impactful, right? And when there are some readings that I'll hear and just, it will sit with me for years and years, that still do, right? That I still am like, oh yeah, remember this nugget of wisdom and of care. And the other thing that I appreciate is when we, as you use, kind of retell the Abrahamic faith stories, right? So the first year, I think I've told this before, but I'm going to tell it again. The first year that I led a Christmas Eve service when the church had no minister. So I had been in plenty of Christmas Eve services. I was usually in charge of the pageant or telling a story. This was me leading the service and this was, I mean, we had 2 services and we had maybe a couple hundred people at each one. So this was not a small operation. And I remember talking to a colleague and I said, I don't know what to do. And she said, tell the story of the birth of Jesus as it is in the Quran. Let me tell you, I did it. It was so beautiful. And it's a very short passage. But the passage in the Quran focuses on the angel Gabriel telling Mary that she's going to have God, the baby. It's actually not the son of God in the Quran, but just that it is still Immaculate Conception. Side note, it's not a big leap to go from one to the other. But anyway, I'm not going to argue with an entire faith of 1 billion people. Anywho, but Gabriel says this is happening and she's scared shitless, right? She's like, what the fuck? Nobody's going to believe me that this was Immaculate Conception. What the fuck do I do? She's terrified. So Jesus is now old enough in the womb to talk to his mother and reassure his mother and tell her it's going to be okay, that he's going to protect her. And so it is a beautiful story of comfort, of family, of honoring the mother. I mean, that is a big theme in the Quran. It's honoring your mother. And I tell that, and it was really sweet. I mean, I told that story and, then after that service, this woman and obviously I think this happens in almost all the UU churches. We get people who aren't UU who just start looking for a place to go Christmas Eve, right? And if the timing works. So this woman who I didn't know comes up to me, clearly a grandmother, because she said, my grandson, who looked about 3, is wondering where the baby Jesus is. Now, thankfully, I did not say what popped into my head, which is, why the fuck would the baby Jesus be here? Instead, I said, the baby Jesus is home waiting for Santa. And then the woman, both the child and the woman, looked at me like, and then I realized that was an absurd thing to say. And I walked away, never saw them again. So that's my Christmas story. But anyway, I went a little off. But really, it's engaging with the sacred texts that impact the world still. People are still fighting holy wars, genocide in Gaza, free Palestine, because of texts that were written thousands of years ago. So it is important that we have because we also, our parents are an Abrahamic faith, that we have a grasp of these stories through our interpretation, which affirm life.
Yes. And as Unitarian Universalists, we should have a story to tell. Now, what is it? Wait a minute. What was the comment? Yes, I'm a UU atheist, but you can pry my Christmas music from my cold dead hands. Yes, lady. Absolutely. I love our fans. I
do too.
Our audience. But as Unitarian Universalists, we also need to be thinking about, what is the story we want to tell? What are the stories that we want our children to inhabit and carry with them through their life? And so starting in January of 26, we're going to start this sort of liturgical calendar that is centered around our shared values, starting with love. And I think we're going to end with joy, and something, I can't remember what the last piece is, but we're going to use those elements of our shared values every month for the next 2 years and build our worship around it. We'll have an episode of The View every month that centers it. We encourage you to join us, even in your brick and mortars. If you attend a brick and mortar, you could follow us. You could follow this liturgy. You could organize your religious education around it. And so, but yeah, so let's think about the story. And since our story, because we are practitioners of plural religion, we don't just have a story. We have many, many, many stories. And so we decided to build this liturgy. And this is an experiment because worship should be experimental and it should be playful and it should be fun because, you know, it's the work of the people,
Yeah,
right? And we should have fun together.
that's right.
And so we're going to experiment with centering our shared values and thinking about how we want to tell the story of these values and their import in our lives, because our worship should not just be gathering for the sake of gathering. For me,
Say that.
worship, J.K. Smith, he's a religious scholar and philosopher. He says that humans are homo liturgicus, and that for him, that means we are worshiping creatures. We are worshiping creatures. And so he goes on to say, so what that means for him is that we gather to tell communal stories that center our highest values. And he says we worship what we love. So ultimately, we are lovers, and that worship is an act of love. It is valuing, lifting up that which we love and that which we desire, right? And so, what shared values, right, of love and transformation and generosity and plurality and interdependence, these are the things that we share in our plural faith, regardless of the many paths we are all on, or the seeking that we're doing. We use these shared values to build a sacred space that
Right.
can hold us all, that's big enough to hold all of us. And so that's the hope, is that we can help foment a story that shapes us and can shape the story of our faith. How do people, again, because you don't have to be, if you're not a Christian and you start attending a Christian church, you don't have to go to seminary to learn the basic theology. You're going to learn it sitting, you sit through that worship for a year or two, you're going to learn, because you're going to see, oh, what's important, what gets emphasized, what gets stated over and over. I'm not so sure if we always do that as Unitarian Universalists. Now,
Not so
you are
sure.
PRE, so you talk to me about this.
We do not. In fact, well, I got so many threads I want to pull, but in terms of Unitarian Universalism, our blessing is our curse. Although I've been asked by you not to say the word curse, but it's true, because it is beautiful to be a faith that affirms there are many paths to God, and you could be an atheist and be on a path to community and within community, right?
Mhm.
So we don't, not mandating a belief in a deity and not saying that your soul when you die is dependent on what you do now is beautiful. And sometimes there, within that, we have folks who become attached to, okay, let me start with, a lot of people are healing from religious trauma. So the folks who aren't born and raised UU, because we have many, I do not want to erase birthright UUs who've been UU sixth, fifth generation. I met many. So there are folks who were raised UU, but then there are folks like me who have a lot of religious trauma and did not have a good experience or a positive experience of religion. And for many years, easily 2 decades, maybe not two, like 15 years, I stayed away from religion altogether.
Mm-hmm.
But then I came back, and when I found Unitarian Universalism and said, oh, I could be part of a community that tells stories that affirm no one's going to hell, because we don't believe in hell. We don't necessarily believe or know what's going to happen when we die, but we know that what we know now, this is what we have to work with. And I love that. And I talk about my UU faith all the time. But then I meet people who are like, well, we don't proselytize. And I'm like, why not? Why don't we proselytize? Why don't we talk about who we are and why we are what we are? And each congregation, we have 1,000-member congregations that are associated with the Unitarian Universalist Association in Boston. You may get maybe not 1,000 different experiences. You'll have the same aura of a chalice lighting, songs, but in terms of what's being said and what theology is being worshipped or preached that day can be wildly different. Some you'll connect with, some you won't. So we don't have we don't have as much of a unifying shared theology as I would like. And I do think we have it. I think we have we're mostly humanists in terms of whether or not you believe in God, we still know that we are centering humanity and how we want to be together, and we want to work for good. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, this is probably going to get me in trouble, but when does that ever stop me? And I don't say this. I keep calling myself a newcomer to the faith. I've been around since 2016.
Listen,
that's almost 10 years. That's not really.
You gotta stop.
But I still feel really new. And I don't think this is specific to Unitarian Universalism. I think I saw this even in the traditions in which I was raised and the ones in which I was exploring. I'm not sure we bring the seriousness to worship that we should. And I'm particularly speaking particularly speaking to religious leaders.
Okay.
Because for me, even if you're seminary trained, worship is not about formal. Worship is our first theology. Ooh. The body is our first theology. Our first theology comes from the body. It does not come from an educational system, whether formal or informal. It is in the body and it is in community. So worship is where we first encounter our communal theologies, our communal values, our communal stories. And for me, if you choose to be a religious leader, a formal religious leader, to me, part of our call, I don't care what walk you're in, part of the call of a religious leader is to be a shaper of tradition. That our job is to take the tradition that we've received and reshape it and reimagine it into the context of today. Oof. For the people. And to help build the imagination of the people so that the next generation has permission to reshape and reimagine that tradition for them, right? Because tradition is not dead. We say we are a living tradition. That means just like when you have a fire in the fireplace, sometimes you got to poke around in there, right? You got to stoke the fire. And worship should be a place where we are stoking the fire of our chalice. We are, we're experimenting, but all because we believe that worship actually does something. Now, we may disagree about what it does.
Right.
Some of us believe in transcendent experience. Some of us don't. Okay. And that, again, we can make all kind of philosophical arguments about that.
Right.
But it's not necessary. But there are different ways to understand what happens in worship. You know, if you read Black Liturgies by co-author Riley, one of the things that she talks about around liturgy is, for her, liturgy is what's written, okay? So she talks about going to church, I believe it was Episcopal church, when she was in a very, was not feeling their best, right? Emotionally, physically. And so for them, liturgy is, she describes it as an anchor, something that can moor you when the waves of life threaten to pull you out. She was like, it won't save me. So for her, liturgy is a communal structure that I can lean on when I don't have the energy. I don't have to come up with the words. I don't have to come up with the songs. I can just inhabit it. I can come to church and be in it today because I don't have the words, the language for it, right? So for her, liturgy is a communal experience, and you can be on different sides. You could be active in the reciting, the singing, or you can sort of inhabit it because you just need to be in the presence of it.
And
Yeah.
and the reason she wrote the book is sitting in that church is she wasn't getting from it because it was written not in the context in which she inhabits, right? And it didn't speak to her. So she wrote the book Black Liturgies, which highly recommend. And so I think that is also what is a powerful takeaway from literally, she was like, this is not feeding me. I am a Black person who, these are texts that are interpreted by white people in a context of colonialism and oppression. And then Cole Arthur Riley went on to write Black Liturgies, which is really powerful.
It's a wonderful book. And so like the idea that liturgy can be a restful space, like when life is lifing real hard, my contribution to worship may just simply be able to be present and to be washed in the liturgy. That's what I need on that particular day.
I'm going to show Greg's comments because, and if you want to read it out, I'd love to know your thoughts.
Sure. I've always liked the idea that worship means worth making, but I often struggle with worship as a word because it really does highlight the adoration of something else. But like on a next level vibe, are we worshiping the interconnected web? So I think that's a great question, Gregory. And again, I would turn to J.K. Smith's work where he around cultural liturgies when he says that it worship is aiming our desires, uplifting what we love. So for him, he's like, if you really understand worship is it is lifting up what we value, what we love, and what we desire. So if that means we're worshiping the interconnected web and stuff, we value it, we honor it, we love the concept that we are all interconnected, then yes, we are worshiping it. I think the problem is worship has been so colonialized that we see it in a we've allowed the settler colonialism to pollute the concept of worship. Worship existed long before Western colonialism.
Long before. And that is such a good point, that taking back and not giving up the idea that when we gather and say the word God or goddess or worship, we are reclaiming, let us not, give up that which belongs to us, right? Our birthright is to worship, is to gather, is to, it doesn't have to be through the lens of someone else's imagination, and certainly not through the imagination of people who want to cause so much harm. And I think the decolonizing of how religion, Western religion, Abrahamic faiths mostly have impacted the world, decolonizing that is, I think, part of healing, is part of
because they're not European traditions.
No,
none of them. Islam is not a European tradition. Judaism is not a European tradition. Christianity is not a European tradition. None of them were born in Europe. Not a single one.
None of them. And Jesus was Palestinian, born in Bethlehem, which is in the West Bank.
The rebel rabbi, as I like to call him.
The rebel rabbi who wanted people to be better Jews.
Yes. And we see this, going back to Gregory's question, you see this a lot in critiques of Black, particularly African traditions. People are like, oh, you worship your ancestors. And then Black people feel some kind of way and try to backtrack. No, we don't worship. Yes, I do worship my ancestors.
I do.
Because I love my ancestors. I esteem my ancestors. I value my ancestors. And so, yes, I worship my ancestors. Same. I do. I worship my community because I value my community. I esteem my community. I think when I say never could have made it without you, it's not some mythical man sitting in the sky. I'm thinking about the ways in which the communities and the peoples and the mysteries of life that gathered around me somehow buoyed me through something that I didn't think I was going to make it through. The
Listen.
mystery. I worship the mystery of it all.
Amen. Amen.
2
That's
years
right.
ago, I walked away from my career with no plan. I didn't have another job. I didn't know what I was going to do. We had just come out the pandemic. It was a lot going on.
Yeah.
But here I am 3 years later, $400,000 out of debt, about to, I have been ordained. In May, I'll become Dr. Hilliard, and I am in ministry. Ministry is at the center of my life. And so, do I know? I'm not sure how all of this has happened in the last 3 years, but I never could have made it without the mystery, without the ways in which the universe operates to bring forth my desires, to bring forth my thriving, to partner with me in thriving.
Ooh, and you didn't lead with fear.
No.
You did not do those things because you were afraid.
No. And again, has that been easy? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I was just doing literally one step at a time. People say, well, when you finish, you graduated May, what are you going to do? I don't know. I literally don't know. I'm just doing the part I know I'm supposed to do right now.
Yeah.
And I trust the universe.
That's right.
To have my back when it's over. So, yes, I worship my ancestors. Absolutely.
Me too. Oh my God, 100%. I mean, to me, it's way more plausible than one man. I don't even know where God of the Abrahamic faith exists, but like who sits on a throne and writes things down is super petty. I feel better knowing that it's my ancestors who are part of my lineage, who understand how I got here and have some cosmic metaphysical connection. And here's what I'll tell you. I love doing tarot. And I've never leaned into tarot as a predictive tool. However, when I read the cards and I'm in a certain place, it is eerie how much it speaks to the moment. It is eerie. Like truly, I'm like, oh yikes. And so I learned from that. And you know what? I'm not attached to the idea of what is real. Like, oh my gosh, science can prove that this thing isn't real. I'm like, man, I actually don't need science to prove or not prove. I want to ask you something. So,
can I just hop in
Please.
when you said that the science part, because I think that's an important component. Africans had been saying our ancestors are with us. Our ancestors and we were being accused of devil worship and idolatry.
That's right.
Now, genetic science is like we carry every ancestor we've ever had in our bodies. So my ancestors were correct long before modern science figured that shit out.
Long before.
My ancestors are with me. I can call upon them because they're inside of, they are. So if you just want to be rational and scientific, your ancestors are with you. For better or for worse. Every ancestor you have lives inside of you. So if you don't believe in the transcendent and that spirit, that's fine. But if you say you believe in science and rationality, your ancestors are inside of you. And you share DNA with celery, 90%. Like, so we're connected to everything.
We are connected to everything. To this day, one of the most spectacular learnings of my life was listening to a podcast, driving through Rainier National Park in Washington State, and learning how mushrooms talk to trees and trees talk to mushrooms and each other. What? And I said, oh, we are so arrogant as the human animals that we are. We are so arrogant. Because I'm like, mushrooms are talking to trees and helping them when they are sick.
Yes. Yes.
We are an absurd species. Okay, here's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
So you and I are rooted in wanting to live and embody a theology and a love that includes the healing not only of us but our ancestors, and love at the center, liberation. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the people for whom colonization and violent extractive capitalism have been part of their legacy,
Mm-hmm.
and who worship, I mean, there are evangelical churches and people preaching women need to take the right to vote needs to be taken away from women because whatever, it doesn't, I don't want to fucking, who cares? But what about that? Like, because the tension is they're also worshiping what they love.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm called as someone who who always wants to maintain the humanity of others. And I grieve on some level, along with, being angry, but I won't dehumanize others at that the legacy and the ancestors of the people who caused so much harm and damage and continue to also is alive. And that's a tension that we live with, because what do?
Well, yes, if worship is people extolling what they love, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first lesson I learned in seminary, I think, was on the very first day, and someone just said, all theology is contextual. If you don't learn anything else, all theology is contextual. So even what we think of as sinful is contextual. Here's an example. In a world of extractive capitalism where my ancestors were kidnapped and trafficked across the ocean and held in prisons we call plantations for 400 years, too much pride is not a sin for Black people. It might be not enough because the job of the system was to destroy our pride. But too much pride for colonizers and imperialists and capitalists is probably sinful. That even our very concepts of what is right or wrong ethically or spiritually is contextual.
Right.
So what I need to be whole and what you need to be whole can be very different, but it doesn't mean we can't seek them together.
Dante, I could listen to you for 700 hours. Well, I mean, yes, and I think, so that means what we are called to do is live out loud, because we center love and model as best we can and do the best we can to be well, I mean, I'm going to quote Gandhi, who was racist as fuck, by the way, you can Google it. But he did say, be the change you want to see in the world. And I appreciate that, because I think that is what I'm hearing, because we can't control other people. I hate it, because I'd like to make people better, but that is not my role. Because
let's be clear, the lynching of my ancestors was worship service.
Whoa, Dante. Oh, yes. Oh my God.
Burning crosses on my ancestors' front, those were worship services. Those were communities of people lifting up their high value, practicing their value, lifting up the values of white supremacy.
Yeah.
And colonialism and capitalism, because most of that stuff was connected to money, by the way. Right. So when you see those lynching photographs with people gathered with their 5-year-old children with watermelon and barbecue taking photographs next to my dead ancestor hanging from a tree, that's worship too.
Yeah.
So some people need to unlearn some worship behaviors. Which really is you need to learn to not value things, right? Yeah. So traditions that love to understand the divine as masculine but demonizes any notion of the divine as feminine,
right?
You need some balance. That's a problem. If you can only understand the divine in a masculine sense and you have no space for the feminine divine, you probably need to work on that, right?
Well, I think yes, and the thing I've been really leaning into the last few weeks is that the tension right now is not between, well, there is evil in the world and it is between good and evil, but the crux of that and how that's playing out is Do we want a society that is centered on control or care? And I think the white Christian Republican Jesus is about control. Our Hebrew Lord, what did you say? The rebel rabbi, Jesus, born in Palestine, is about community care. Who said, feed the poor, not fuck them people. That's not what Jesus said. He didn't say cut SNAP benefits because of I don't understand what.
Yeah. Wherever there was if he was president, there was a need, he filled it.
100% of that. Look, here's what I'm gonna say about that. Even if you are such an atheist, I've heard of you say Jesus didn't exist. I'm like, bruh, there's actually kind of a lot of evidence that Jesus existed. But even if you went with that, like even if you somehow decide that Jesus didn't exist as a figment of somebody's imagination, even within that, the story of Jesus, brown Jesus, Palestinian Christ, is of community care, of be better. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. But yet we have wealthy Joel Osteen Christians who are saying, make as much money as you can, because that's how I know God loves me, is I get a lot of money.
Yeah, and I have sat in a Jewish Seder. I've sat through the 3-4 hour ritual of a Seder.
Oh, yeah.
It's powerful. It is beautiful. And I don't know how anyone who sits through that once a year don't understand why destroying Palestinians is a problem. Because the whole ritual was like, don't harm because you've been harmed. Be kind to the stranger because you've been the stranger.
Ooh.
Don't oppress because you've been oppressed. Like, that's the ritual. So the question is, are we worshiping to conjure our highest values within ourselves and the world, or are we worshiping because it's it looks good?
Or are we worshiping because we are in a paradigm of control that we want to maintain? Right? Are we or are we wanting to connect with that which we love, and what we love is affirming life and community? Or do we love being part of the in group or the powerful group and control and destroy others' lives? I mean,
And I also think it's important to recognize that in a Unitarian Universalist sense, this is the reason part of the reason I am a Unitarian Universalist, and I don't think I would be in any other formal structure, theologically again, is because when we gather to tell our story, because we are practitioners of plural religion, my thing will never always be centered.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a unique thing. I hold Christian tradition. I hold traditional African traditions. I hold mystical traditions. I hold humanistic traditions. I hold theological traditions. I hold a bevy of traditions. And there's not enough people that's holding all of that in any particular service so that my shit is always centered.
Right.
So if you need your stuff to be always centered, you're probably not ready for pluralism. Because pluralism means that sometimes somebody else's stuff is centered, and part of my job is to, one, bear witness to them getting to experience their thing being centered, and for me to be open to the possibilities of transformation and information that can come from being present and inhabiting the space where their thing is being centered.
Say that. Because
that's part of when we talk about interdependence, this is part of what it means to be a Unitarian. So no, like, again, I come from a very Black and churchy background, but Black church is not always going to be centered. That's not, like, it's not going to be a Black church. I'm in a white tradition. Like, that's not going to always be there. Now, I bring it with me, but that's okay. That's okay, because I can center my things when I have the opportunity to do so, and I can learn to appreciate other people's ways of being. Again, I come from a place where church lasts 3-4 hours. Unitarians, if you go past 60 minutes, people got an attitude, right? It took me a long time to understand 60-minute worship. The first time I went to, it was a Presbyterian church, and we got out in 60 minutes, and I was like, this is not worship. And I literally got on the bus and went across town to the Pentecostal church because I knew they'd still be in church. I was like, because I was in church. Now I appreciate a 60-minute worship.
That's amazing. Pluralism invites transformation. Amen, Nicole. I think the part, oh man, I could talk about this for hours, because that has been, especially as a faith leader, and when I worked for 3 separate brick and mortar congregations on both coasts, East and West. And the challenge of people, the invitation to folks in pluralism, in a pluralistic faith, is always to learn how to be in community. And that means what you want, I put that in quotes, is not going to be front and center all the time. As my one colleague put it, she said, being in community means some of your needs will get met some of the time, but the community's needs will be met all of the time, right? And that is a lesson that people in the United States as a whole need to learn, because the lie of individualism is how we got here.
Yeah.
The idea that somehow we are separate, and we are not separate. Like you said, like we are absolutely unequivocally not separate. And James Baldwin said, white people got to get their shit together because our destinies are tied. Again, not a direct quote, but that's the essence of what it's such a to me, it is a beautiful gift. And it is a result of, I grew up in a high control faith, being told, here are all the answers to any question you have. It's the same answer. Otherwise, you're asking the wrong question. It's on you, right? So being in a faith that affirms people in the fullness of who we are is so fucking beautiful and powerful. And who also says, you know what? There are many stories and traditions that people hold, and we are not going to demonize anyone. Is fucking beautiful. And yet it feels, when sometimes I've been in spaces and I feel like it's squandering a gift, saying, well, I don't want you to say the word God, or I don't want this, or I don't want, Dante, I got to the point where I'm actually glad the principles aren't 7. I mean, they're part of our bylaws, but like the first principle, I affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person. I'm like, you all need to lose that principle because you're misusing it. Like, you have to affirm it's not about, I want to get what I want because I have inherent worth and dignity. Yes, you do. Yes, and that is about affirming everybody's inherent worth and dignity.
And in order to affirm everybody's inherent worth and dignity, you can't be at the center all the time.
Not all the time. Like it, and also, what do you lose? Oh God, I wish I could remember. You do better at remembering direct quotes, but Cole Arthur Riley says this about in Black liturgy, where she invites, like, if you're not Black, can you descent? She doesn't use these words, but basically, can you decenter yourself enough to receive this? Like, that's Cole Arthur Riley's invitation to whoever's reading it, right? And that's the invitation to transform in Unitarian Universalism, a beautiful faith with a beautiful message.
Aisha was having a little technical difficulties, and I think it has snatched her away. Hopefully she'll be back. We have about a little over 11 minutes of the show, but we want to hear more from you too about your understanding of worship and liturgy. There, she's back! Yay! The tech gremlins.
We only got a few minutes, tech gremlins. Leave me alone. Got 11 minutes. We could do this.
Did you want to finish up your?
Just that this is a beautiful faith that I want to grow, because I think I meet so many people who were UU, who were part of a UU church or loved the UUs for a little while. I do want to say one thing that's a little separate from what we're saying, but we're not. Miss Rachel, the woman who talks to children and has a YouTube show for toddlers, grew up UU, met her husband in a UU church in New York City. And one of our colleagues on Facebook said, hey, newsflash, Miss Rachel's a UU because Miss Rachel was named one of Glamour magazine's Women of the Year.
Okay.
The reason why it is important she was raised UU is not that in and of itself. The reason she was chosen one of Glamour Women of the Year is because she stood up for Gaza and children in Palestine, got death threats. People came after her, and she tripled down. She's like, yeah, no, I don't care what I lose. I'm never going to not stand up for children and say that genocide is wrong. So Miss Rachel is an example of somebody who embodied who we are as Unitarian Universalists and tripled down on what is wrong. And so I just want to say, when you are sharing excitement over Miss Rachel being UU and being chosen Glamour Woman of the Year, please know she didn't get that just because she's a fucking UU. It's because she's a UU who's living her values and standing up for children in Gaza, free Palestine. Okay,
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
And so to bring the circle back to worship, to me, you can't. Worship is where we practice living our values, where we practice embodying our values. When we come to worship, it is rehearsal, it is practice, and we keep practicing doing it better inside the container of our chosen community so that when we're out in the world, it is easier to because we're building muscle memory. Right? We practice our values so that when we're in the game of life,
That's right,
those values are in us and it's easier for us to embody them in real time. Not that the church is not the real world, but in worship in our communities, we are creating a difference. We're creating a sacred space that is beyond space and time. It is, or if you're from the theater world, we suspend our disbelief. We create a container outside of our everyday.
That's right.
But in the everyday world, when we build the muscle of living
Right.
our values, it is so much easier to live them when life shows up lifing.
That's right.
And that's why worship is important.
Yeah. Yes. 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 And when we center, when we embody and center the values in the context of connection and the interdependent web, that is when we could be transformed. That's when I mean, that's one of the things as I've gotten older. I am not intimidated nor afraid of people thinking differently than I do. I think what I do center is if someone says to me, I don't know, I had a fascinating conversation recently about the national debt. I'm like, I don't give a fuck about the national debt because that's all made up. Like, it's all on paper. I care about people being fed and not being bombed. Like, what kind of society do we want to live in? And that has very much been informed by how I've been a Unitarian Universalist for the past 20 plus years. It is, okay, here's what I'll also say. What I took from my Muslim upbringing very much is a deep, strong sense of social justice. My mother used to say, there's an Arabic term like that, the plight of the poor is around our necks. Allah has charged us with never there. I remember us being on welfare and food stamps when they used to be paper. Remember, they used to be paper in a book and you used to have to rip it out and they were in 5, 10, and 20. And my mother still gave 10%. 10%. And I'm like, even at like 10 years old, I was like, couldn't there be a good case to be made with Allah that maybe we keep all this money because we don't got. And she said, we live in the United States where I can get money to go get food. I am absolutely going to share. When I tell you, my mother has, and that stayed with me. Yeah. The fact that we had nothing, very little, not nothing. My mother would say, we don't have nothing. You're being fed, aren't you? Mm-hmm. Yes, Mama, I am. And so, and that I carry with me in my UUism, how I live out Unitarian Universalism.
Because what that is that is a practicing of the mystery, right? Mm-hmm. It is, I am going to not lean into scarcity. Yes. I believe the universe is abundant, and helping someone else is not harming myself. So I'm going to practice this because I'm practicing trusting the universe to get my back. I'm rehearsing. I am practicing. And for me, that's why worship, again, if you are a strict atheist, you don't have concepts of spirit and God, great. I feel like atheists are some of the most spiritual people I ever met, but that might be offensive to some people. But if you don't have a God concept, not a problem for me. But practicing, where does the harm come from practicing our values? We practice for everything else. We go to school to practice reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? If you are in theater, you go to rehearsal. If you play a sport, you go to practice.
That's right.
This is how we learn to operate at our best.
Ooh.
And worship is the religious version of this. We gather to learn in community, to practice together, so that we can be our best out in the world. And if we keep doing it, the belief is we will be transformed. We're not doing it because we are transformed. We're doing it because we know that the doing itself will transform us.
Whew. And that's the thing, right? It isn't, like you said, the living tradition, that it is an active faith. And when we lean into that, we are charged with carrying the flame throughout the week. And the CLF, when we begin and end our worships with the chalice lighting, as almost every other congregation, we say, people put in the chat, I carry the flame at the end. So you are invited to carry the flame with what touched you that week, what transformed you. How will you go out in the world and live out that which centers love?
Yeah. Lady Phelan says, this atheist will worship with you any day. Come on, let's do it.
Listen.
But this is why I love being a Unitarian Universalist, because we prove that the structures of the world are a lie. Our existence is proof that pluralism is it's not only a viable option, it is the most life-giving option we have available to us.
That's right.
Pluralism is it. That is what for me, I know, and I understand why we say love is at the center, but when I sort of work through our values, for me, none of them work if you don't believe in pluralism.
Yeah, none of it.
You can't even love if you don't believe in pluralism.
Exactly. How would it work? Nicole's offspring says, I love for its centering of pluralism. I love that for you. Yes.
Yeah. It is this notion that we can be different, we can think differently, we can walk different paths together.
Amen. Amen.
And
Amen.
if that can't save the world, nothing can.
Say that. Everyone go to clfuu.org and sign up for worship. And we have an archive. I recommend all of Dante's worships, all of Michael's worship. I have some good ones. You throw spaghetti at the wall, sometimes it sticks.
Aisha is an amazing preacher. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it.
This is me trying to be humble. I appreciate you. I think this is the part that gives me hope about the world. I think there are more and more people that are realizing. And here, the other thing I wanted to say, you said in the beginning, I'm going to go a little full circle. We got 2 minutes. People worship something, even if they're not going to church. People worship the YMCA. They worship going to a gun club. They worship Starbucks. They worship Capitol. I mean, we are wired to worship. It may not come out as a religious place, but definitely we worship something. And so let us choose wisely. So we lean into fixing a very, very broken humanity. Because here's the thing. Climate change and fixing violent extractive capitalism is about saving humanity. The world will be better off without us. I wish it wasn't. But the earth will heal. This is about healing us. Who do we want to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Nicole says View is her church. I think that's beautiful, because this is worship too. This is work, because thank you, Nicole, because worship is not again, if it is lifting up our highest value, it is practicing our values in a communal setting. And the view is that.
It is that.
It is that. And hey, Claire from Edmonds UU, we appreciate you.
Hi, Claire. I know Claire. Hi. That's so fun.
But yeah, so I am so excited about being in this faith and in this tradition where we can be different together.
On that note, thank you, Dante. What a beautiful conversation. I am so glad the ancestors saw fit that we have my computer working.
Happy birthday to Aisha.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Yes, I am a Scorpio. You and I are Scorpio siblings.
Yes, we are.
And we are off next week for the day of mourning and or holiday with your family. We will not be airing, and then we'll be back in December. Oh my goodness. It is almost Christmas, Holy Moses, and Hanukkah and all the winter holidays. Thank you all so much. Thank you for our guests and folks who chimed in. And Dante, you know how much I adore you. Thank you.
I adore you back. Oh, and December, our focus at CLF was going to be on joy. So that will be our theme for the month of December. So we look forward to those of you who join us for worship.
We are going to talk about joy. I'm going to actually write today's, I'm going to write about joy in the time of the apocalypse. So with that note, bye everybody. Okay, let's see if I get the outro going. This is going to be exciting. Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to everyone who gives generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible.
Visit clfuu.org/give to make a contribution.
We hope you will join us next week for another episode of the Voices of Unitarian Universalism.